perhaps not our most organized selves this morning, coming right off of the holiday. And I know Kathleen has been out traveling, so we're going to pull ourselves together and have some good discussion today. However, I want to welcome Commissioner Davis, who has been added to this committee. Welcome. And it's his first meeting with us. So ask questions as needed, Commissioner, to make sure that you are up to speed. And I believe today we're going to have some discussion around community outreach. With the CARES Act, we set the CARES Act application out for the community and took in applications, and we're looking at doing that in this case as well. But because we have additional time, we don't have to give out all this money tomorrow the way we did in the CARES Act situation. We have an opportunity to do additional outreach with the community to ensure that we're spending the money well. Kathleen, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that we need to promote Erica and Emily as panelists, because they're from iParametrics, and they'll be talking about our application portal that we've developed with iParamedics, so they'd like to join.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. In that case, I don't know who was supposed to go first, staff, so I will turn it over to you to decide what order we go in and lead us.
Commissioner, would you like me to do roll call?
Oh, yes, please, Lisa. Thank you.
Committee member roll call. Commissioner Markley.
Here.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Here.
Commissioner Townsend.
Here.
Commissioner Bynum. Here. Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Alan Howes. Kathleen Von Achten.
Here.
And Ashley Hand.
Hello.
I think here.
Thank you.
So Commissioner, we did not develop an agenda. So we're gonna play this by ear a little bit, and I think however you like to proceed would be best. So we're gonna start with Ashley. How's that?
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Hand. I'm the Director of Strategic Communications with the Unified Government, and really excited to be able to brainstorm a little bit with you this morning around our community engagement process. This is a very unique opportunity for us to think about establishing a very high standard for the way that we engage our community, leverage the data resources that we have for informed decision-making, but also to continue to build on the work that's already happening in our community. So we want to be very kind of sensitive to the fact that this will be, as a process itself, kind of an evolution. I think it's really important that while we kind of understand what the end game is here, which is to hear from the community, understand what the priorities are from the community's perspective, but also to make sure that we are directing these investments in a way that helps continue moving the community forward is really important. So what is scoped out at the onset of an engagement strategy has to be flexible as it evolves, as you receive that input, to continue to evolve throughout the process. So what I'm going to propose here is start to work through a couple of ideas on how we get this process started with you as a committee, the commission as a whole, but also in the landscape of all the other activities we have going on in terms of engagement. For example, the community survey is going out this month, which will bring us a lot of really strong data about community and neighborhood perspectives at the district and neighborhood level in a way that will really help inform this process. And those results will be available in April of 2022. So I'm trying to build this in the framework of all of these other inputs that we'll be getting, so that we have the opportunity to really leverage those assets and data sets as part of the feedback and input into this process. But maybe just to start, I think it'd be important to maybe show you kind of what we're thinking in terms of how to approach our initial outreach. So I'm going to carefully share my screen here for you. And hopefully you can see it in presentation mode. Is that all set? Yep. Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. So one thing I wanted to kind of start with as an idea, and I'm eager to hear your feedback as a committee, is this is something that has come up in the infrastructure subcommittees that the commissioners have been working on with our Public Works Department over the last 7, 8 months, I would say, to really start to understand kind of what our current asset inventory is, where are there critical infrastructure needs, but also how do we prioritize moving forward as a community with supporting either existing infrastructure or changing the amount of infrastructure that we have. So through that process, there was a discussion about how we define equity. This is something that comes up quite a bit. It is a pillar of the American Rescue Plan legislation to really target disadvantaged communities and historically disadvantaged communities in the pandemic recovery. But I think as an organization, how we define equity as unified government and as a community varies depending on who you're talking to and which program you're specifically applying that lens to. So what we're proposing here is a 2-part series where it's both educational but also engagement, where we have an opportunity to talk about how do other cities and communities have been defining equity. And this is in a way that is not only just a statement of what the term means to us as an organization, but it's quantifiable. So how do we start to see what are the measures across our community that help us understand when we make improvements and change outcomes for people that we can actually measure it. So one of the things that we're proposing is having that conversation, and Commissioner Bynum, you raised this question about how we define equity in one of our infrastructure committee meetings. And so I'd like to kind of bring together a little mini series of people that could talk about how they've applied that best practice from an organizational perspective and a community perspective, but then engage our community about how they are measuring equity and understanding it. And I think this can be a very straightforward process in that a lot of communities have already gone through this. I've certainly been part of some of these efforts in different cities that I've lived and worked in. And I think this is a really important kind of threshold to establish that when we talk about equitable programs, what does that actually mean? When we talk about addressing equity, whether it's health or social or economic, we really need to be clear on that so we can measure change and improvements. The second kind of component would then, we are a very, very small team, as you are well aware. iParametrics has incredible capacity to help us mobilize locally on outreach as needed, and they are in the wings today to help us with this discussion if we want to hear more about what they can do. But we are also trying to recruit 2 AmeriCorps Vistas to help us with outreach in our small office, because as you know, we are a very lean, mean operation here and need as much support as we can to help really leverage our existing networks and channels and capacity, but also to start to reach into new channels and new ways of engaging our community that we have not previously explored. So those 2 vistas will be really instrumental, and we're really working to try to find people that have more than one language or community connections already, and that recruitment process will start shortly. But those 2 folks will be kind of on the ground to help us as ARPA coordinators, which is from a communications perspective, which is really important. We find that we maintain an email address, for example, for community members to email us. Having timely responses and making sure that we're proactively outreaching to the community will be part of this mini team scope. So really make sure that we're dedicated to this and moving this forward. And then to take it to the next level. So once we've defined equity, we start to understand, how do we as a community want to measure equity in our community, whether it's and what does that start to look like? Then we'll kind of go really into kind of more goal-centered outreach. So as you have seen in previous presentations, we've kind of outlined 3 major buckets of goal areas, whether it's our community health and well-being, whether it's our infrastructure needs, or it's our organizational resiliency and capacity for the future. So recognizing that there are potential catastrophes coming our way in the future, and as an organization, we need to be better equipped to address that in the future so that our community is never kind of left out when there is a challenge facing us. So this would then kind of hone in on that community health and well-being as the first goal area to really drill into. And the reason why I'm proposing this as the place to start is because of the CARES Act work, because of the extensive network that the Public Health Department has created with neighborhood and community providers. that we know there's a lot of work already happening. And so this is about a little bit of a landscape assessment, but also as an opportunity to do a gap analysis. Where are there things that are not happening in our neighborhoods that really are important in terms of moving that needle around equity and improving conditions for our community? So I'm proposing kind of a 2-week, very intensive process to dive into that goal area and pull together all of the data that we have, whether it's past community surveys, whether it's individual program feedback, whether it's internal UG staff input on what's happening in our community as boots on the ground. They often see things and can anticipate things in our neighborhoods, working with our commission as well to distill where these things are, but then broadening this outreach to neighborhood organizations, community networks, the general public, and really use this as an opportunity to kind of dive into a more informed conversation around these specific goals and what we would like to see working together as a community as a result of our pandemic recovery. So where do we go? How do we get there? Really kind of honing in on that. And then, and the reason why that's important is that it gets us a little bit closer to the community survey data that comes out in April. And I think one thing that I've been trying to think about very holistically as an organization is that people don't care if it's the appraiser's office or the budget office or any number of organizations, agency on aging, it doesn't matter. No one cares who it's coming from. They all see it as a unified government. It's important for us to kind of think holistically. So I want to tie in some of the process that we typically carry through in our overarching budget process to start to inform some of the ARPA process, right? Because we will fill gaps in the budget process as the commission weighs priorities and directs UG on where to go with spending in the next fiscal year. And then ARPA is obviously an opportunity to kind of be more intentional with specific applications of funding to meet the goals that you have as a commission. So trying to kind of make sure that we're leveraging and using both conversations concurrently to really inform where this is going. And then through this process of identifying how we measure and qualify what equity is in our community, how we track information with an online presence and dashboard and making sure that that information is readily available to our community and partners, diving deeply into one of the goal areas as a template to see how does this work? Can we get the people at the table? Are people excited to participate in this process? And if not, what do we do? So that when we move to the second goal area, we can inform that process. And then taking in these overarching data sets, all of the inputs that we have within our organization and outside of our organization to make sure that you as a committee have that full package of data to assess and prioritize. And then we'll use those kind of insights to inform what type of subject matter experts you need to hear from, whether it's from other cities on the way that they measure equity, whether it's from our own staff in terms of where there are needs, or whether it's from the community as a whole. We can start to weigh that in and consider, what the best strategy is to support you as a committee as you come up with recommendations for the full commission. That is an awful lot of information to throw at you in the first 15 minutes of our meeting this new year. So I just wanted to pause there and kind of see if there's any questions, but also respond to any feedback and ideas that you might have about how we could approach this.
I think that one thing that you sort of pointed out that is valuable is that this engagement timeline walks alongside what, assuming it progresses as it has in the past 8 years or so, our budget timeline, which is good because realistically, the feedback we get from the community is going to be about funding in general. And there may be some things we want to address through our regular budget process, while other things we may want to address through the ARPA process. So it's nice that those can walk together hand in hand, and we can get that feedback about where money should go. And then we can determine whether it needs to go the budget route, the regular budget route, or the ARPA route. So I think that is handy, just works out nicely that way. Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, thank you for this, Ashley. So I don't want to get too ahead here, so tell me if I am. But I think from a practical standpoint, we'll have to kind of pull out all the stops. And so if we are trying to gauge the community, I don't know if we've looked at mailers or kind of, putting out mailers for folks. We've looked at working with our churches and nonprofits. The
Yep.
other thing I'd highly recommend is evening and weekend opportunities for folks to engage, because we're having this meeting at 10:30 a.m. on Monday. Most of my constituents are at work, and it's just not a convenient time, for everyone to engage. And so I would hope that we would prioritize those times for folks to engage.
Absolutely, Commissioner Davis, and I really appreciate that. So there's a couple of things that I've been really excited to explore with this process specifically. One is our direct engagement with our NBRs, our neighborhood business revitalization organizations. We have kind of a set contract with each of these organizations to do a certain amount of work with a fixed contribution from our budget to their budget each year. There was some money set aside from the immediate needs for communications. I think the reality is that the folks working in the MBRs, for example, are working on a lot of stuff already, and this is in addition to what they are already doing. So I want to engage the MBRs on where and how they would like to be involved in this process so that we can put money where the work needs to be, right? So the reality is that you have to be able to offer not just flexibility and access and timing. You need to be able to provide language resources. You may have to consider things like childcare if you want community participation in something. There are a lot of boxes that we need to make sure we cover to truly address accessibility. And as you all know, 2022 is my year of accessibility. So I am very, very committed to trying to expand the umbrella of participants that typically get involved in conversations with the unified government and any number of our stakeholders. Mailers are absolutely one of our favorite tools, and I'm very excited to leverage that. I have been working with the small business liaison, for example, about doing one just targeting small businesses so that they can be aware of the resource that's currently available to them. But we also have an upcoming issue of the Citizen, which we have yet to schedule for 2022, but it's a great opportunity to not only introduce our new mayor and full commission, but also to really delve into this. And so I want to really dedicate some space in the Citizen, which goes out in both English and Spanish, to ensure that every single household at least has the opportunity to receive the information from us. And that does go to every household in Wyandotte County. And the churches and nonprofits, absolutely. I think we've seen that, a weekend meeting convened by a neighborhood stakeholder is going to be much more impactful in reaching into the community than we would be convening a meeting on our own. So any place that we can identify where those channels are, absolutely. And that's part of why the ARPA coordinators from the communications side for the VISTA program are so important, because they will be part of that team on the ground that will go out into the community and help co-facilitate and support those meetings as we roll them out. So definitely fully appreciate that, Commissioner. And I think, I've definitely recognized over the 10 months that I've been with the organization, our current channels are very limited in the reach that we have. We hit tens of thousands of people, not 100,000 people, with a lot of stuff that we do. And so really figuring out how to amplify the message more effectively is something that we're really focusing on. I think ARPA is the number one driver for that right now.
I do think it's an additional complication that, it used to be we would go to existing neighborhood group meetings, and in a lot of those groups, if they are meeting, it's sporadic depending on what the COVID situation is, or they're still meeting on Zoom, or they're still, so I think that adds an additional layer of complication, because that used to be an already existing, already populated meeting for us to attend and be part of. And now a lot of those are a little more scattered. So
and time of year too, not only that people aren't meeting in person, but also it's cold outside, right? So there was a really interesting strategy the planning department used in the Armourdale area master plan, where they had community members hired to be local canvassers that went out and went door to door to talk to community members and get them to weigh in, because meeting in person was often difficult, particularly if you were elderly or dealing with health issues already. You were probably uncomfortable going out and attending a meeting in person. So we are eager to explore those types of tools as well, because I think those are the types of tactics that can not only put a trusted face in front of the community members as they participate, but also make sure that we recognize that people are not showing up to meetings these days. It's very difficult. And so we will want to absolutely explore that. We also recognize that there are still activities that are happening in the community. There are still events happening. And if it's us showing up and tabling and making sure that we're there and maybe find some creative ways of engaging people in those existing events, we definitely want to piggyback on that wherever we can. But I will also look to the commission to help point us to where and what and who and how would be most effective based on the people that you represent, because not everyone uses the same tools the same way, and we want to be sensitive to that.
Other questions or comments from the commission? All right, Ashley, what's next?
All right, so I think what we wanted to do is also kind of talk a little bit about the nonprofit engagement and how that's going to happen during this discussion. I'm going to try to stop sharing my screen because I think what we would like to do is understand kind of how we engaged the nonprofits in the past through the CARES Act application. So we were going to talk a little bit about that, and Kathleen's on the line to do so. And then we have Erica and Emily from iParametric, which is the consultant team that we've been working with on grant pursuits with the UG. And they've been a very productive team. Erica is here on the ground in the region. And maybe, Erica, if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing just a little bit about what iParametric can do to support community outreach. I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but if you're able to kind of respond to that, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the nonprofit approach and what the committee would like us to do next.
Absolutely. So we are very good at reaching out to the community and trying to meet them where they are as far as the language barriers, and trying to provide multiple modes of assistance to them with applying for our grant opportunities. We currently have a small business grant portal available to our Wyandotte County small businesses, and have had a few of those applications actually come in already. And we're very excited to see the interest in that. And we hope that that will continue to grow as we partner with Ashley and team to get the message further out there into our community. We have had success with these same programs in other municipalities across the United States, and have kind of continued to evolve and improve on those programs to make the best product that we can for Wyandotte County. And I have Emily on the line as well, who can walk us through what the existing small business grant portal looks like, so that you can kind of have that look and feel from us. And you can see that it's offered in multiple languages. So we have it in English and Spanish for Wyandotte County. And yes, I'm out here actually in West Wyandotte right now presenting to you. So I'm super excited also to be helping my local community with this. So Emily, would you mind walking us through what it looks like for the small business grant portal as we have it now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can share my screen and take you guys through a few of the steps of the current program that we have. And like Erica had mentioned, we have this for multiple states. I'm working on it for Rhode Island as well. So I'm from Massachusetts, not in Kansas. But so we can start off. This is the application registration form. And as you can see, everyone can see my screen, right? Yeah, okay, perfect. Just wanted to double check. You can see we have it in English and Spanish as well. We can do other languages, really anything when it comes to that. So folks, first of all, have to read through it. They do have to check on boxes. They have to answer questions about how your business do you operate in Kansas. Yes. Do you have any negative impacts? Yes. Do you pay property taxes? And if they answer no to these, it should knock them out of the running. So they automatically won't, run into having to fill out the application. And this application, I do want to point out before I get too involved, is completely customizable. Any, thing you'd like to do to it, we can make that happen. From here, they fill out the contact form and they submit it. After that, they should shortly receive an email afterwards to verify their email. And that's getting rid of any fraud issues right off the bat, so we don't have to worry about that. Once they get that email, they will also receive another link that's the application intake form itself. So this is their actual application that has been created for Kansas. So just taking you guys through these steps quick. Business, address. This is really, like I had mentioned, all customizable depending on what you'd like to see from businesses to make sure they're definitely a business. Never employees, gross revenue, tax returns. Tax returns are definitely great for people to put in there. Definitely shows that they're a business. Tax certificate, Secretary of State certificate, lease agreement. And, I see other states have different documents that they attach, whatever really you guys would like to see. And also that's compliant. Let's see if this will take me. Would you like me to fill this application out and take you guys through it really fast?
I think it's okay.
Commissioner Bynum has her hand up, so she might have a question
Sure.
before we.
Thanks. I just wanted to stop on this particular grant application and ask if we have a mechanism internally by which we can help a small business owner who, for example, cannot scan a document. Do we have help available for folks to, fill out and properly submit this application?
Yeah, I know for right now, we do have an email inbox folks can email to. And then we also have a call line, so folks can feel free to call in. And I have a case manager working behind the scenes, answering those phone calls, getting folks through to whatever they need help.
Additionally, Kathleen's team also has office hours available. So if any of our small business partners could go into the office there and use our resources at the UG to submit the application and have that real-time feedback as far as the questions and how to answer those and making sure they have proper documentation. So yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I don't know what the will of the committee is in terms of seeing the full application. This is more of an example for us to get an idea of what our application for the ARPA funding that we are in charge of might look like, where this application obviously is for a small business program specifically. Commissioner Townsend?
Well, I think you just answered the question that I was about to ask, because I see reference to ARPA on here. And I hope people won't become confused thinking that this is the ARPA application and why is it being dispensed in certain circles and not on a broader scale. So this is what? Is this something that is currently being used for small businesses only? What is its connection to ARPA, just so I better understand?
I can answer that, Commissioner. So this was, there was about $500,000 set aside for small business support and relief from the immediate needs report that was adopted in August of 2021. So this is really the first kind of application out there for funding from ARPA, specifically designated for small businesses support. So this is a up to $10,000, and it provides kind of funding for things like training and resources to kind of pivot your business model while we're continuing to, see people have, shop online and doing different things that they need different technical capabilities as organizations. So this kind of provides support for that. So you are correct, Commissioner Townsend, this is not kind of a broad one. It is only for small businesses. And it was launched just before the holidays, and we are working right now on things like postcards and other outreach to various networks representing small businesses and neighborhoods to make sure that people are aware of its availability. It's a rolling application as well. So while tomorrow, I believe, is the first initial review day of what has come in, the plan is to continue to accept applications, particularly because we recognize that over the holidays, a lot of folks in small business were probably too busy to do much more than just focus on their business. So giving them some more time to apply for this.
Okay, I do remember the allocation going back when you brought it up. So can anyone go to this is available online, so anybody can query our EcoDevo
Yes.
personnel? for
It is
more
available.
information?
If you search anywhere on our website, you should be able to pull this up. We have, over the holiday, I did retool our online presence regarding ARPA, which we'll be launching later today, moving away from the My Sidewalk site to actually having the pages on our website, which makes them much easier to find. So that's happening today as well. So yes, any person could Google this or go into our website and should be able to look up small business grant and come up with this information.
Okay. I have some other questions in mind, but I guess a few of them have to do with, well, this is limited to only small business. And did you mention a $10,000? Did someone mention a $10,000 upper limit?
Yes, it's up to $10,000.
Okay. And who will decide if someone gets the grant or not of the applicants? Will that be this committee or EcoDevo personnel? How will that be handled?
Commissioner, this is Kathleen Von Atchen.
Good
So
morning.
our parametric team have a few more slides they want to show you. They're going to show you their website, and how the web portal will have a means for case managers to review all the applications to ensure that they meet all the eligibility, et cetera. Could you proceed with that explanation, Emily?
Yeah, of course. So this is our portal that, so basically once a business applies, it goes to, first off, a case manager. And a case manager reviews the application. You can actually click on, well, I won't go too far in, but so my case manager will take hold of an application, run through all the eligibility requirements that we've worked with Kansas on to make sure they are eligible for all of them. They make their determinations. They then send it to me. I make my determinations as well based off all the information. There is times where, you know, the applicant doesn't provide enough information. So we just reach back out with the email that they provided or phone number. And we just send them a quick email and we just ask for a little more information sometimes right off the bat, they are good to go. And we can approve it for payment. And then, so we haven't approved any for payment quite yet. We've had about 12 applications total. And I think out of that, we've found that we think 2 are eligible so far. 1 has been non-eligible because they don't meet the requirements, and the rest are in request for more information. So my case manager has reached out to them for more information.
And we are partnering with our folks with Kathleen's team to make sure that we are working through the process as they envisioned it, and making sure that all of the candidates meet not only the requirements as they've been laid out, but that we are following through with the way that this program was designed, so that we are working hand in hand to get the all of our small businesses that are eligible work through this process.
So really the answer to Commissioner Townsend's question is, this is more of a, if you are eligible, first come, first serve until we're out of money sort of situation. So your team is making the determination as to whether or not they are eligible based on the set requirements. If they're eligible, they get the money. If they're not eligible, they don't. And when we run out of money, the money's gone. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. And in fact, as part of the additional needs portion that you all will be evaluating in the future, you can make the decision to add to the $500,000 allocation we currently have as the cap. So if there's demonstrated an additional, that there are more applicants than we have resources, then you all can decide to add more money to it. So.
But in that respect, it is different than what we would see out of our general ARPA application, where it's not going to be first come, first serve, and it's not going to be you're either eligible or not eligible. Those decisions are going to have to come back to us. So in that respect, this application will look different. The iParametrics team could still determine basic eligibility, but then the decision making is going to look different.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I do have that with another client as well. It's a similar process that you guys are discussing right now. So basically we make our first determinations, and then we put, we've come up with an Excel spreadsheet for them, which is, whatever works for you is what we would do. They like Excel. We kind of put out business, everything they need to know about the eligibility requirements, send that up to them, and then have one big meeting where we can talk about that application itself, any missing details that they wanted to talk about, and then they make their determinations as well. But we kind of make those first basis. So it kind of gets some nitty-gritty details out of the way for them to make it nice and easy.
And so where could someone see the eligibility requirements? Because it sounds as though you're saying they either meet it or they don't, and it's not really an evaluation on the merit, for lack of a better term, of the program. So where could someone find what those requirements are?
The requirements are on our website. So there is, in addition to the online portal that you've been seeing here, on our website, we do have information regarding kind of what the program is, the requirements, and things like that.
And
Yeah,
we
we've
can
also
put the
included
eligibility
those.
requirements throughout the application as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
And then again, Emily referenced that we have an email as well. So if there are any questions as someone is going through this process that they would care to raise to us, we do have those case managers who can answer those on an as needed basis, and making sure that we are touching base with the UG on anything that may not be crystal clear.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, one more thing to add, we have found that there's a lot of power in video, not only because it's easily disseminated through social media, it works really well with their algorithms, but also explainer tools can be really effective in helping people feel like it's not as burdensome. So we will be working with Shaya Lockett, who's the small business liaison, to create a mini tutorial video to go up on our website to kind of, what do you need to put together before you get into the application? Just really high level, but just to kind of break down any barriers. And that gives us the opportunity to further explain it in other languages as well. So we are working on putting that together over the next week or so. We've just been a small team over the holidays. So we're working on that.
Right. So the application is already out though, online.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. So this dashboard shows, we've received 12 applications. A couple of them folks are working on and they're not quite submitted yet. A total awarded is the amount that we've made our determination so far. So one business requested 10,000, the other requested, 9,900, something like that. So it kind of shows total awarded. And then we also have, if we were to submit payment, how much money has given out. So we can keep track of basically everything. And definitely have a good reference. In applications, we add in any talking with them, we add in emails, if there's a phone conversation, keeping all of those correspondence, good record of everything. Right now, there's no applications in the system. That's kind of why you see this blank here. But if there's one, there'd be a one here. If I had a few that I needed to go in and claim, we work through that too. So once you see the system a little more used, you see this dashboard much more developed. But it kind of gives you, myself, everyone, a good overview of what's going on, where applications are in progress, where they need to go, things like that.
All right, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I had two quick questions because I know we got to get going. The first one is, out of the $500,000, just so we're clear on this, we didn't use any of that money to compensate iParametrics. I guess how they're being compensated is a different pot of money. That's my first question. My second question is, how long is this grant available? Is there a deadline? And if I missed that, I apologize, or is it just until the money runs out?
So, Commissioner, the iParametrics consulting contract is part of the administrative costs that were approved as part of the immediate needs. It's in a separate pot. It's not part of this 500,000 at all. And my parametrics is doing a lot of different things. This is just one of many things that they're going to be assisting us with. So, and then well, officially the ARPA funds have to be spent or have to be obligated sometime by the end of 2024. But so, we got plenty of time to spend the funds. But I think that the Economic Development Department team have, set up a few deadlines in order to get this going. So, which, depending on the response rate, they may postpone the deadlines too. So, right.
Do we know any of those dates as of yet, or we still just?
So, we do know those dates. I just, I don't remember them offhand. Sorry. So,
All right, thank you.
yeah, probably Emily knows them, or one of the gals on the call here.
I believe that we set a soft date for the end of this year. So we're trying to get those applications received. That way we can also get all of the supporting documentation and make sure that we have a very clean process going forward with making sure we have all the receipts matching up for when the feds do audit us.
Yeah, see, so it's pretty open, obviously. Yeah, right now. So the one thing I did want to share is this is, we're just sharing this with you so that you all can see what's possible. This is the generally how we're planning to proceed with the nonprofit and area agency and NUG department application process as well, which would be a separate application process with a separate portal. And the development of that application itself has not started. What we had planned on using is sort of the CARES Act application that was used previously last year, sort of as a basis to start with. The iParametric team have actually developed a nonprofit type application process similar to what we've been talking about for a variety of other communities. So they have some expertise and experience with that. And that's why I've asked them to join us so that they can, help with any of the questions or ideas that you all may have, and to get some feedback from all the commissioners from you all. So.
Thanks, Kathleen. So one question that I have is, with our CARES Act application, we sort of tried to weight things so that when we came out with our Excel sheet at the end, we had some sort of prioritization based on weighted scores. And so I'm curious how that works. I mean, you guys are obviously, geniuses in this field, so I'm sure you can make that happen. But I think then the big question for this committee going forward would be, what do we weight and why do we weight things that are going to leverage other funds? I think we did that with our CARES Act. The idea was they got a higher score if they were going to partner with somebody else and leverage funds, but that sort of weighting is what could make our analysis of the applications go more smoothly, because if we have to review as a committee each of the hundreds of applications one by one and say, oh, I like this one, oh, I don't like this one, oh, I like this one more than this one, we're going to be spending every day together for the rest of our lives. So I'm curious how that would look in your sort of dashboard and what tools you might have to help us begin to prioritize the applications as they're coming in based on the type of program they're proposing.
Yeah, once we have the guidance from this team as to what we want to set our weighting score with, we would be able to put that into our analytics and then just have that dashboard display that to you, so that those that are weighted with the greatest value are the ones that are prioritized for you all to review. And then those that don't quite meet as many of the criteria that you set forward as being most important are relegated to the lower portion of the review schedule for you guys. That way you can make the most of the time that you have together, to your point, Commissioner Markley.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I just might add, I think the opportunity to do things like have this conversation about what equity is, further delve into the goal areas and the priorities that you've already started to articulate about what our recovery should look like, that should help inform some of that weighting. And this may also be yet another opportunity to engage more broadly. We could potentially look at kind of a more community-focused, community-driven task force to supplement and support this committee and the work that they're doing, that could do a deeper dive around the metrics and prioritization questions that we want to be asking as we look forward to recovery. I think I'm trying to understand there is a very tenuous balance with the amount of time that you actually have available to make decisions. How do we get to a point where we can readily get information in front of you as a committee so that you can weigh in and give direction and we can take it to commission as appropriate, versus where is there more flexibility? So I would be more than willing to help facilitate if you would like to create some type of kind of community-centered task force around how we prioritize and weight these things based on these other engagement efforts that we're going through. Happy to include that as part of that scope. So that's just something you might want to factor in that might give this committee a little bit more kind of capacity by asking the community to help us get to those metrics and priority weightings a little bit more quickly.
I just think, I think that's fine. I don't know that it matters how we arrive at the weighting. I just think it was really critical to us being able to analyze those CARES Act applications expediently, but still by making sure we're prioritizing the right things. I mean, we had some applications where you looked at them and you were like, well, yeah, it would be nice to have this thing. Like all of them were great, right? They're all things we want, but it had nothing to do with what CARES was really designed for and didn't impact very many people. And, there were all these downsides. So we want those applications they were technically eligible, but we want to be able to see quickly that those applications fall to the bottom of the line just based on our priorities as a commission and as a community. And we want those ones that impact a ton of people, meet the, ARPA needs perfectly, meet all of our goals perfectly. We want to see those rise to the top as easily as possible so that we don't have to spend all of our time haggling out each individual application. So Kathleen, did you have something?
Hey, yeah, thank you. So I did want to mention, so, the next step really for our team is put together the application. And my thoughts are that we write it, as broadly as possible to give the applicants a chance to really explain what their proposals are and what goals and objectives they're planning to achieve and how much it would cost and what the assumptions are. And are they, also looking to partner with the other agencies, or if there's other funding sources that they're using as a match or what have you, just kind of give them a chance to really think, to communicate to us what their proposals are. And so, write the application so that so they have the opportunity to provide us all that information. And then, once we collect all that information, of course, then, then the metrics for the decision making would be incorporated on our side. So, but right now the key point for me, I guess, is to really get us started with the application so that we can get that out so that the community can start engaging with us and sharing what they would like to do. So that's all. And I think iParametrics could probably speak on that point because they've done a number of these applications.
Yeah, we are happy to start getting the application up and running in parallel with the definition of those weighting matrix that you guys would like for us to create that dashboard on the back end. So we can definitely do these things in parallel to get it launched faster for you. Although we have more time than we had with CARES, it's still never enough. So we want to make sure that we are being as good stewards with our time as we can and making sure that we are the best partners that we can be for you.
Thanks, Erica. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1. Just two statements. The first one is, as we continue these subcommittee meetings, they are public. And I think it might be helpful for just as we start each meeting to remind the community and ourselves what's of the big buckets. Number one, how much, was allocated to the city, how much was allocated to the county, how much has been already allocated to other places, and the dollar amount that we're talking about with regard to this community outreach portion. I just think that's good information to put in front of us every time we start, by way of reminding ourselves and everyone else, here's where we are in this process so far. And my second comment is simply this: if we could include within the application a statement that says, if you are not fully funded, how will you manage the funds that you are given, and how will that impact the work that you are trying to do? Because we already know that the requests are going to outweigh the amount of money tenfold, if not more. And so I think we need to hear from our applicants. How can they be effective? with a pot of money that's less than what they're requesting. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I think, if I'm not totally mistaken, I think that our new website may be a good starting point for us each meeting. Ashley ought to be able to pull that up once it is live. And at the beginning of each meeting, we'll be able to see sort of where the funds are and everything in a summarized position. And that will also be available to our public to look at anytime that they please. So Ashley's nodding, I'm not crazy, right? So I think that is a good point, and it'll make that information readily accessible to us and to the public, and be a good starting point for us every meeting without staff having to do a lot of extra work to provide that information. So Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along a similar line, I like the idea we won't necessarily be starting from scratch on developing what the application should look like, thanks to these experts in that field. But one thing I would like to see included along that line, similar to the question that Commissioner Bynum talked about, was having the applicant explain, and it's kind of a reminder to any and all applicants, how their request for funds fits into those three buckets. Have those three buckets identified on there. Of course, we'll give them a better name by that time, categories, or priorities that have been determined, and have them give us a statement, as to how that fits into at least one or more than one of those priorities. So that was it. Thanks.
Right. Yeah, we want them to check our boxes. Commissioner Davis.
Have we discussed already how much money is being allocated for nonprofits? Has that come up yet?
We have not.
Okay.
We had some leading discussion to discuss the fact that we have both commission priorities that we want to make sure that we reserve some funds for, and then we have these applications coming in, and had some leading discussions about the fact that we want to make sure we don't forget those things that might be commission priorities that aren't necessarily going to come in an application format. So we have not formalized that discussion into we're going to keep X number of dollars here, X number of dollars there. So Commissioner Davis, you are here in time for those discussions to happen going forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think that putting a limit would also maybe curtail some of the other questions relating to the application and scope and things. We did $500,000 for small businesses. We put those limitations. That immediately cancels out some of these other asks that, we may not even get. And so, yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, we don't want the $20 million applications because we know that's not going to happen. Kathleen.
Yeah, so as part of the immediate needs that we already approved back on August 26th, there was a small placeholder for for nonprofits, and it was very general. And we just allocated a beginning number of $500,000. And that was just a beginning number to address immediate needs. And the thought was at the time, back in August, that we would open up this portal and start collecting applications. But then since then, we've decided to, pull back and form this subcommittee, and then start having of the subcommittee, and so forth. All of this has been transpiring since then. So none of that $500,000 has been allocated, nor was it ever intended to be a cap. It was just a starting point. And so just so you know, that's there, so.
Good to know. Thank you. Ashley?
Just to go back to Commissioner Davis's comment, I think in addition to kind of this process and how we engage and work with our nonprofit communities as stakeholders, as they could potentially do a lot of work in our community with these funds, was there have been other suggestions around kind of whether it's looking for innovative solutions and trying to find some kind of key strategic initiatives that will be smaller seed kind of projects where it could create multiple benefits, not just to our recovery, but also maybe supplementing and supporting our efforts to pursue infrastructure funds and things like that. So really trying to think about a balanced approach of kind of boots on the ground, enabling the folks that are kind of on the ground doing the work to have access to funds as needed, as appropriate per the commission direction. And then there's room for other things that we as a community really want to accomplish. And I think we're really excited about the ability to look at some of those strategic initiatives as well as a seed for other funds and other federal grant opportunities that may be coming down our line to make sure that we're really taking advantage of every single dollar that we've received and leveraging it into multiple dollars for our community.
All right, team. So it sounds like next step really is to get an application up and running, and the work that we need to do in parallel with Erica and Emily to make that happen would be to figure out some of the weighting possibilities. And I don't know, staff, if there's any surveying we could do in between, Survey Monkey style, to get some consensus maybe from the committee on some things that the committee would like to see weighted higher versus lower. That might be a way to get us started. We can maybe talk about that offline a little bit. Erica has her hand up. She's got solutions.
Actually, I was going to ask if we could have Jeff Stevens promoted to a panelist, please. And he has some suggestions for how they have approached this with other communities that iParametrics has assisted with.
Oh, it looks like he got promoted.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year.
Welcome.
And Angela, I think what you were just saying in terms of surveys, we do have surveys drafts that we can modify that might be able to be of assistance.
Super. Yeah, I just think that might get us a head start. Then we can, if there are big differences, we can haggle those out in more of a meeting form. But if we can use some sort of surveying to get this group of commissioners to sort of begin to define what are higher priorities, what are lower priorities, and how we want to weight those scores as they come in, that would be a great way to get us a real head start, I think, toward that goal. Staff, what else do you want to have as our future goals? What does the next meeting look like? And is there any homework that I need to assign? Ashley?
Well, I'm always willing to ask for help. I am eager to launch the community engagement. We are obviously building our capacity as we're kind of getting this out the door. So I do need your help from the commission's perspective of groups that need to be engaged, blind spots that we've had in the past. These are the types of things that you can really help us quickly understand your districts as best as possible. And as we kind of layer that into our strategy, that'll be really informative. I also would like to open up an invitation to any of the commissioners, either on this committee or more broadly to the full commission, that if you'd like to actively participate in any of these conversations, whether it's defining equity or going into, some of the best practices that we talked about in the charting forward of this conversation, I would love to have you involved in any capacity that you're willing to, whether it's sharing things on social media on the behalf of the unified government or directly participating in any of these meetings. I would love to have that involvement. So I just need to understand what you're interested in doing, how you'd like to be available for that. And we can work with you to design something that works most effectively with your availability and your interest.
Ashley, can you put together an email to go out to the commissioners as a whole so that those who are on this committee can make suggestions to you of those places that engagement might be appropriate, and then offer up that opportunity for their participation as well? I would appreciate that.
Awesome. The other suggestion, Commissioner Markley, that I would have in terms of next steps would be, I think it might be very valuable, particularly for the community who's trying to kind of watch this. We are Facebook live streaming this, which is something new, but we're trying very hard to kind of get this out into the community as quickly as it's happening, is whether or not we want to block out kind of a general agenda for the next 3 or 4 sessions so that people know what they're attending. There's an opportunity obviously to bring staff with subject matter expertise as appropriate to supporting the commission and committee and these discussions. But I think that might be a very constructive path forward. And I'd be more than willing to take a stab at that, and that we can kind of take offline and block that out so that as we set the next meeting, it's clear what we're talking about, and that way people who are interested can jump online if they're interested.
Absolutely. You were reading my mind, because my next comment was going to be that our next meeting, we're going to be better about, we're going to have an agenda. We have in our previous meetings, Commissioner Davis, it was just this one that was a bit of an anomaly coming off the holidays that we were kind of just flinging ourselves at it full force here. So we will get an agenda out in advance of the next meeting, so you will all know what to expect. And so we can make sure we stay on task during this time together. It sounds like we have some next steps. We know probably what our next discussion is going to be focused on. Commissioner Townsend. See your hand.
Well, Madam Chair, so that you don't feel badly about this meeting, my notes from the last meeting indicate we were going to talk about what the application looks like. And so from the ongoing discussion, I think we've all been on task on that point. So.
Good deal. Very good. See, we weren't far off the mark. We were just a little more scattered perhaps in our approach, but we're getting there. All right. Are there additional questions or comments about this meeting's content, about our next steps before we sign off? If not, I will get you out of here early, which I'm sure no one will be sad about. And we will regroup in our next meeting to continue discussions about this application, hopefully finalize some of what that's going to look like, and forge ahead with other discussions about community engagement and about strategic initiatives, we'll call them. Great. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year. And thank you, Erica, Emily, and Jeff for being with us today to discuss. And we'll look forward to hearing more from you later.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.